Come to order. Members, please register. Have all members registered? Have all members registered? Being 138 ayes and 0 nay, or 138 present, a quorum is present. The following announcement, the clerk will read the announcements.
The Select Committee on Disaster Preparedness and Flooding will meet today upon final recess or during bill referral period if permission is granted in room 1W.14 Agricultural Museum in a formal meeting to consider pending referred and committee business.
Mr. Rosenthal, for what purpose?
I'll wait for the HB4 author.
Mr. Hunter, Mr. Dutton, for what purpose?
Parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Speaker.
State your inquiry.
Has the bill passed now?
On second reading.
Yes. Does that mean it's passed?
On second reading. It is not finally passed.
So, Parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Dutton, state your inquiry.
So, does the notice on call say final passage of the bill?
Mr. Dutton, the call on the House, the motion made by the body was for final passage.
And the note says final passage.
I'm sorry?
I'm looking at the note. I didn't see final passage on the note that people were given, the notice that people were given.
Mr. Dutton, I cannot hear you.
I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker. Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry, Mr. Dutton.
One of the notices I saw about being on the call didn't say final passage.
The call was made, the motion by the body was until it's finally completed on third reading.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes. Mr. Hunter for a motion.
Mr. Speaker, I move to direct the chief clerk when engrossing HB4 to incorporate into Article 2 of the bill the text of the census geography for each district that describes the plan as finally passed by the House.
Members, you've heard the motion. There is a record vote request on all votes today. The clerk will ring the bell. So Mr. Hunter voting aye. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? 89 ayes, 49 nays. The motion prevails. Chair lays out on third reading House Bill 4. The clerk will read the bill.
HB number 4 by Hunter relating to the composition of the districts for the election of members of the United States House of Representatives from the state of Texas.
Mr. Hunter to explain the bill.
Thank you. Members, again, we are now on third reading of HB4, and I'll take questions.
Ms. Rose, for what purpose?
Mr. Speaker, will the gentleman yield?
Gentlemen yield for questions?
Yes.
Thank
Yields
you.
for questions.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Chairman Hunter, I just want to talk to you a little bit about coalition districts. Which districts in the 2021 map were coalition districts?
I can't recall.
What do you understand coalition districts are?
Well, if you'll go to Petaway, which we discussed on second reading about coalition districts, it will give you coalition districts as well as crossover districts. Coalition districts, as you're aware, are when, let's say, two minority groups are able to combine together. And what this says is you can have a coalition district, but you cannot use it to violate Section 2.
So, so it's your view that coalition districts are illegal? Illegal?
Well, I don't know if I can say they're legal.
said
They are
illegal.
a term that was used prior to 2024. With the Petaway decision, I'm not sure exactly how they'd be legally categorized, but the terminology is still used.
Okay. So which coalition districts did you dismantle in the map that you're passing?
Well, I didn't go at coalition districts. I had the lawyers come up with 5 seats and enhance the Republican performance. And that's what we did. I didn't go at a coalition. I was looking at voter, basically citizen voting and voter age population.
So while you were doing that, did it leave any coalition districts in the maps from 2021?
That I don't know. I don't know.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Rosenthal, for what purpose?
Does the gentleman yield for questions?
Gentleman yield for questions?
Yes.
He yields for questions.
Thank you, Chair Hunter. Why was no public testimony allowed for this committee substitute plan C2333?
I don't know because I'm not the chairman or vice chairman.
Can you explain how the public input that was collected at the field hearings is reflected in this map
Yes.
that we have today?
There was testimony on Austin to San Antonio, and there was discussion about how long it went in, why there wasn't more in one area or not. That's one of the areas that we've heard. We also heard at the several public hearings, and so that everybody knows there's a difference between compact and packed and cracked. And in those hearings, there was a lot of discussion of folks talking about it's better to be compact in the districts. Those variables were included, and I gave that information to the lawyers from the hearing.
Can you explain why a map proposal was not made available to the public at the field hearings, the 3 field hearings that we had?
No, I don't.
It was made clear by both the House and Senate chairs that the map proposal was drawn by outside consultants through the Butler Snow law firm. Why wasn't the map available for the public to view and comment on at that time?
So I didn't hear could you read the first part of your question?
Sure. It was made clear by yourself numerous times today and in committee that the map proposal was drawn by outside consultants through the Butler Snow law firm. Why wasn't that map available for the public to view for those field hearings?
First, just to clarify how you said that, Butler Snow, as we've talked about today, is the law firm.
Yes.
Whether the individual lawyers, they had consultants, I do not know that. Why it wasn't produced until after the Arlington hearing, is that what you're asking?
I'm asking why it was not produced until after all of the public hearings.
It wasn't Arlington the last public hearing?
Austin, Houston, Arlington, yes.
Yes. That I don't know. I was not asked to be the author of the bill until Tuesday after the Arlington hearing.
I see, thank you. Why was public testimony limited to only 5 hours in each of the field hearings?
I do not know because I'm not the head of that committee.
Okay, so at the limit of possibility, which of course we can't operate at that, if you have 5 hours, a maximum of 150 people could speak if we were going in perfect order with no breaks, right? If each one had 2 minutes.
Well, you know, I'll rely on your math, but they also had a portal. They could also bring in written testimony. I believe the chairman set up a system where people could provide written information. In fact, many of us got written information, so it wasn't just limited to oral testimony. Plus, you did have, I think Zoom was set up at one of them, but you had participating and you could then turn in writing.
But you would agree the math says if you had 5 hours for public testimony, for people to actually speak, the maximum number would have been 150 in each hearing.
I said I'm relying on your math as
Very
an
good.
engineer.
And so for the last hearing where we actually had a map to look at, 10 hours, that would have been a max of 300 people if you accept the math.
I will rely on you as a House member if you've done the math.
Do you know how many witnesses registered for the bill's companion in Houston?
At the Houston hearing,
Sorry, in the House hearing.
The-
So when we had the bill in front of us in the House, do you know how many people registered?
I do not.
It was around 500. Do you know how many people registered against the filed map?
I don't.
It was 473. Do you know how many were in favor?
I don't.
3. It seems that the vast majority of Texans are not in favor of this redistricting. Can you remind us of why we're here if it's not to serve the people of Texas?
Well, I disagree with you. We had hearings. You didn't mention what was brought up earlier today. I believe your party had field officers, at least in print, and robos going out getting people to the hearing. Now that sounds like people are driving people to the hearing to oppose. That was in print. 2, even if they did, I think it is constructive to have hearings to hear folks. I also think it's constructive when members are present to meet with us. And I also think it's constructive that the more we're together as a body, like you just said, we can get things done very, very well. So I believe that we did have the current and good operation. And I don't know why the numbers were the way they were, but I'm not surprised. I've been to many hearings where the opposition comes out, not necessarily the support. Lots of that. That's nothing unusual to me.
A few proponents of this map have cited population increase as a reason to redistrict. Can you remind us of what data was used to redraw this map? Was it anything to do with population increase?
Could you, it echoes, could you repeat that question one more time?
Could you tell us if population increase or population numerical data was used to draw the map in terms of the change in the number of population?
As I stated when we were voting on the bill earlier, all the data, all the information that was in the creation of the details were done by council or whoever they involved. Todd Hunter does not have personal knowledge of that, but relied on council.
So, had nothing to do with any new official census data, right?
That I don't know. I don't know if there's estimated census out there. I know there's a lot of trend data out there. I personally do not know the specific data.
Got it. Do you think it's fair to voters to have their congressional districts constantly changed?
Well, I'm not sure. Well, first of all, there's nothing that prevents redistricting to be continuing.
That's true. So in the theoretical limit,
But I hadn't finished.
you could redraw the districts in front of every single election if we go down this path. Is that true? Theoretically.
Theoretically, I doubt it because I don't think practically you could. But I do believe there is nothing that bars redistricting to be taken up at different times. We're not held to a 10-year standard. That's incorrect. And just because you don't like it doesn't mean you're not able to do it.
So I'll point out, do you realize that this whole process has taken you all less than 30 days. And so you can admit to the possibility that this could be done in front of every single election if you think there's a possibility you'll lose.
You know, what happens, happens, my
Thank you,
Vice
sir.
Chairman. I just don't know.
Mr. Speaker. All for what purpose? Does the gentleman yield for a few questions? Gentleman yield for
Yes.
questions? He yields for questions.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm just going to try to go through these quickly for time. I want to talk about CD 35. What is the specific purpose of creating CD 35 with a Hispanic citizen voting age population of 51.6%?
So your question is, why was it created?
Right, with that, what I'll call a razor-thin margin. What is the purpose?
I don't know what the purpose is on the margin, but this was under the Supreme Court, one of the districts that could be Republican, and so they used partisanship in it.
Do you know if CD 35, with a Hispanic citizen voting age population of 51.6%, was created to comply with the Voting Rights Act?
All right, you're talking about 35?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So everybody knows Hispanic CVAP in 2021 was 4586. In this bill, it is 5157. So we increased it 5.71 change. And I don't know if that was the council's goal, but I'm sure they used all this information to create it.
So to that point, just need to ask, do you know the purpose of the geographic changes to CD 35? It was moved out of Travis and I-35, out of Kyle and Buda.
So this is one of the ones where the vice chairman just asked. We heard testimony in the hearings about Austin to San Antonio. And this is one of the ones that was suggested we may want to take a look at this area because it goes all the way down. And so I am sure that was one of the factors that was taken into 35, and it's now a new Hispanic CVAP majority district. And Republican does performance increase, absolutely.
Do you know whether or not, when approaching, let's call it the current or previous version prior to this map, the previous version of CD 35, when I say previous, I mean the one that is now, before these maps might be implemented, certainly hope not, but do you know if that district was required or protected by the Voting Rights Act?
Do I know? Well,
Whether the current configuration of CD 35.
Understand.
Okay.
the law changed since 2021. That's what we've been saying throughout the day. So the law has changed, and we're able to use different elements and information than we've had in the past. In 2021, I cannot recall here exactly how some of these were created. The problem that I have with your question is then your side filed a lawsuit that is pending in El Paso. And so I don't know what's being determined there.
Understood. You've mentioned some of the conversations you had in committee. You've mentioned that the law has changed since 2021. Are you saying that the current version of CD 35 is a replacement for the previous version? And when I say current, I'm saying, are you saying that the proposed version of CD 35 is a replacement for the CD 35 that we have now?
I don't know about the word replacement, but I've been very upfront. This is a absolutely brand new created Republican partisan supported performing district. 9, 28, 34, 35.
Thank you, Chairman.
Dutton, for what purpose?
Will the gentleman yield for questions?
Gentleman
Sure.
for questions? Yield for
Absolutely.
questions.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Now, as I understand it, the changes that you're in this bill come about as a result of a law change in 2021?
I'm not sure your question. 2021, we had redistricting. It is challenged in federal court. 2025, we are presenting a new congressional plan that allows 5 additional Republican performing partisan seats.
But that's the result you said, I thought you said, of a law change in 2021.
No, I said one of the elements that is being looked at since 2021 were court cases.
And that is, and that is, I didn't mean to cut you off, but that results in this bill, essentially.
I'm not sure that's what results in the bill, but I will say that is an element of this bill.
So what else happened between the last redistricting and this bill that causes you comfort to make these changes?
Well, number one, in 2024, the Petaway case was
Okay.
decided.
A
And
year
there
ago.
they said Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act does not authorize separately protected minority groups to aggregate their populations for purposes of a vote dilution claim, and it does not require political subdivisions to draw precinct lines for these particular groups. So this changed a lot of the law that happened in 2021.
And that, oh,
Then,
sorry.
the Rucho case, which was before 2021, 2019, has been reviewed and studied since that time, and then it, along with Petaway, for partisan redistricting, has become very strong on the law circles.
Or at least it changed the law. I mean, you're saying strong, but it essentially changed the law
I agree.
in regards to that. Well, you know, I find that interesting, but certainly I want to compliment you. I wish you all had been around for quite some time, because are you aware of Brown versus Board of Education?
I'm aware of it.
And you know, it was 1956 case, right?
It's a long time ago case. Yes.
Right. And I was in elementary school when that came down. And you know when they finally implemented it? I was in college. And so if they could have done it with the same speed that you all are doing this, we might have a different conversation right now. And I just want to thank you for being able to change the whole concept of all deliberate speed.
Mr. Speaker,
Ms. Weiner, for what purpose?
will the gentleman yield for questions?
Yes.
Does the gentleman yields for questions about 15 seconds?
Representative Hunter, I'd like to know what your constituents in Nueces County have in common with mine in Buda and Kyle.
Because you're inaccurate, I've heard that all day about Port Aransas. Port Aransas is about 15.
Gentleman's time has expired.
Mr. Speaker, I move to extend the gentleman's time.
There's a motion to extend the time. There is an objection. A record vote has been requested on all motions. All those in favor of extending time vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. The clerk will ring the bell. Show Mr. Hunter voting no. Show Mr. Morgan voting no. Show Mr. Jones of Dallas voting aye. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? There being 52 ayes and 84 nays, the motion fails. Mr. Morgan, for what purpose?
Yes, I'd like to ask that all the conversation regarding House Bill 4 from the yesterday be reduced to writing. That includes Ms. Pearson, Ms. Hickland, and Mr. Spiller.
Mr. Morgan, that request has already been addressed and will be reflected in the journal.
Okay, thank you.
The chair recognizes Ms. Gonzalez of Dallas in opposition.
Mr. Speaker,
Mr. Canales, for what purpose?
to come and clean up the last request, can we just have all of it today, yesterday, every day regarding HB4?
That request has already been made, Mr.
Thank you.
Canales. The chair recognizes Ms. Gonzalez of Dallas in opposition to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members. I rise today in fierce opposition to HB4 and for what it represents for my community and the Latino communities across Texas. This body, this legislature, spends a lot of time demonizing my people. Many of you even campaign on it. Latinos, whether in North or South Texas, whether they are first-generation citizens or can trace their lineage back to the founding of this state, have been attacked consistently by their government for as long as Texas has existed. And here we are again, being forced to sit through it once again, in a manner that is not just unjust, but inconsistent with our U.S. Constitution. This map doesn't just draw new lines. It draws a painful and familiar conclusion that our voices don't matter, that our communities can be sliced up and diluted and ignored, that we can be visible in the labor force and the tax rolls, but invisible when it comes to representation. In Dallas, neighborhoods with large Latino populations, places like Oak Cliff, where I live, Bachman Lake, parts of Pleasant Grove, are being carved apart. Precincts are being split block by block, families put into different districts, communities divided. These are not random changes. They are calculated erasures of political strength, and we see it for what it is. And it hurts communities like mine, but that's nothing new, I guess, with this body. You've heard these stories before from this very mic. Mexican Americans suffered through La Matanza and La Hora de Sangre in the early 20th century, where thousands were killed in state-sanctioned lynchings. It took the courage of one man, J.T. Canales, the only Mexican American in this House at the time, to investigate, to speak truth to power, and to demand change. The violence never stopped. It just changed form. It became regulatory, it became legislative, literacy tests, English-only ballots, Juan Crow laws passed right here in this chamber that sought to suppress our voice under the guise of governance. And the legacy lives on. In 2023, this legislature passed SB 4, the Show Me Your Papers bill. It encouraged racial profiling, it encouraged vigilante justice, it stripped away local control and allowed fear to settle like a fog over our immigrant neighborhoods. And just this year, families across Texas saw ICE detain and deport people who were American citizens. Again, American citizens, because of faulty records or because a brown face simply seemed suspicious. The result was the same: families shattered, communities silenced, trust destroyed. So today, when you present yet another plan to divide and weaken us through redistricting, understand this: we've seen this playbook before. Today we endure attacks that would have felt like home in the era before the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act. This state's history of racism, of violence, of shameful policy is important and relevant today because these policies become cultural norms and standards when our or my representation is limited or erased. We are being told again this isn't about race, that these maps are fair, that communities like mine are not being targeted. But when supporters of this bill come to this mic or the back mic or get on social media and say, we aren't demonizing anyone, or I love having Latinos in my district, I want you to remember the words spoken by their own party's chosen leader, the same man that they openly support. Quote, I don't know if you call them people in some cases. They're not people. They're poisoning the blood of our country. And members, that's not neutrality. That's not accidental. That's a narrative. And it's the same narrative that justifies cracking apart Latino neighborhoods in Dallas so that their political power won't grow. It's the same narrative that tells us our concerns don't matter, that our voices are too loud, and our representation is optional. But we aren't going anywhere. We will keep telling the truth, we will keep calling out injustice, and we will remember what you do here today because history will remember it too, and all eyes are on you. I oppose this map, I oppose this process, and I oppose what it says about the value of Latino lives in the state of Texas. I urge you to vote against this rigged map. Thank you.
The chair recognizes Ms. Lopez in support of HB 4.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I'll make this short and simple. I'll speak in Spanish and in English. So today, I just want to come to you as someone from the Rio Grande Valley, myself in South Texas. I am in support of this bill. I think it's good for Texas and it's good for South Texas as well.
Mr.
So,
Speaker?
in Spanish.
Ms. Gomez, for what purpose?
Would the gentlelady yield for questions?
Does the
Not at
gentlelady
this
yield
moment.
for questions? Not at this time.
So, se oye hablar mucho del Río Grande en el Valle. Yo soy del Río Grande. Yo también dejé el Partido Demócrata. Este mapa es bueno para Texas, es bueno para el Valle y apoyo este mapa como hispana. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, will the gentlelady yield for questions, or does she flee?
Ms. Gomez, for what purpose?
Will the gentlelady yield for questions, or does she flee?
The gentlelady has yielded the front microphone. The chair
She has
recognizes Ms. Rose in opposition to HB 4. Chair recognizes
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, we're about to vote on these new congressional maps, and the maps do not seek to make our districts more balanced or fair. What it does, and it's not about voters. These maps are about silencing communities. It was designated that way. These maps before us diminish the voting power of Black and brown communities who have fought for generations for that access and that power. Our parents and grandparents sacrificed so that we could have a voice in democracy, so that our neighbors, our churches, our schools, our business, all could be represented in this chamber. And I know that may be foreign to you all, especially to those who are talking while I'm talking, because you don't care, but there have been sacrifices made. Just because you may not have had to have those sacrifices and you all can't relate to them, we know that sacrifices have been made. And yet, we are here watching those voices be carved up, diluted, and diminished. This is not about lines. This is about lives. When you take away representation, you take away agency, you strip people of their power to fight for health care in their communities, you silence their ability to demand quality education for their children, and you weaken stances to secure good jobs, fair wages, and safe neighborhoods. For generations, Black and brown people have contributed to the state of Texas. I know you all don't believe that. This building that you're sitting in, I hope you all know who built it. For generations, again, Black and brown Texans have contributed to the prosperity of this state. We pay taxes, we raise our children, we serve, we worship, and we vote. The message of these maps is clear, that our voices are inconvenient, that our growing strength is something to be contained rather than celebrated. Let me say this plainly. Representation is power. When you deny our representation, you deny us power. You deny us dignity. We are denied the promise of Texas. History is watching us. And I hope you're proud of this part of the history that you will be known for. I will not stand by silently while the progress of generations who have struggled for it to be erased with a stroke of a pen. Fair maps are not just about politics. They're about justice. They are about equity. They are about whether Texas will be a true state that belongs to us all. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The chair recognizes Ms. Pearson to speak in favor of the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, first I want to thank Chairman Hunter and Chairman Vasut and the rest of the committee for their tireless work answering the governor's call. Chairman Hunter may not have taken the personal attacks and disrespect personally, but I did. The opposition gets to stand here and grandstand and say pretty much anything that they want, and we're expected to stand here and just take it. You call my voters racist, you call my party racist, but yet we're expected to follow the rules. Well, that double standard ends today. You know, I started out 15 years ago as a concerned citizen, and I became a volunteer activist. I didn't like what I was seeing, so I got involved. The more I learned, the more I dug in, because I was determined to change the trajectory of not just our state, but our country. And I would argue that I did that. From a founding member of the Tea Party movement to fighting on the front lines for President Trump in 2015, long before it was cool, I have traveled all over this country for the better part of a decade, and I can tell you that more and more minority voters are voting their values, not their skin color. And many of them are moving to Texas to escape the blue states because their values have been successfully gerrymandered into suppression. Now, I've heard the accusations that this mid-decade redistricting is going to silence voters and that it misrepresents the population of Texas. But history tells a different story. We are not the first state to do mid-decade redistricting, and we didn't invent the playbook. But who led the way? Blue states, the ones that you all fled to. The very party today crying foul, and the same party that's saying that they want a fair fight is the party that's pushing boys into girls' sports. They say we're diluting the minority districts. They call us racist, but the facts don't match your rhetoric. Texas currently has 0 black CVAP districts, and under the new map, there are 2. Now, I haven't been to 3rd grade in a really long time, but when you go from 0 to 2, that's an increase. Or perhaps you're using liberal logic. I have heard repeatedly that these maps are gerrymandered, but that doesn't fit the narrative either. That's just spin. Because in many parts of the state, the map eliminates gerrymandering. They emphasize compactness in whole counties and whole cities. Political performance isn't just legal, it is fair. And it reflects the voters of the state of Texas. The reality is, the opposition is complaining that we are ungerrymandering the gerrymandering. Another complaint that I've heard is that we're silencing public input. But let me be clear. I sat through over 46 hours of public testimony. I listened, I traveled, and I heard the voices. And those voices are reflected in this map if you actually look at the map. But I understand the frustration. My colleagues on the other side of the aisle, they're struggling right now. Because the fact is, President Trump won Hispanic voters in the state of Texas. I get it. You don't like that. And to address my colleague earlier who asked the chairman if he knew that blacks fled during slavery, well, they did. And they fled to Republican states. Another fact, in 2024, Democrat lost. President Trump won big. So you're upset, and I get it. You're losing at the ballot box, but you will not silence the majority in the state of Texas. You can throw your tantrum, you can leave, you can run, and you can ignore the will of the rest of the voters. But it's honestly time to pick a new narrative. The racist rhetoric is old. It is seriously stale and long overplayed. Newsflash. Democrats do not own minorities in Texas. The South lost. There are black and Hispanic and Asian Republicans right here in this chamber who were all elected just like you. Republicans are the majority. So it's not the people of Texas who are racist, it is you. All of these speeches on victimization and this toxic white guilt that I've had to suffer through my entire life, I'm sick of it. The people of Texas have spoken. We have the majority. President Trump flipped 11 out of 18 counties on the Texas-Mexico border. The people of Texas are sick of the rhetoric as well. He doubled his support from 2020, so political performance is the driver. You lost. Get over it. I urge my colleagues to vote in favor of HB 4. Removing gerrymandering is the right thing to do. Increasing minority representation is the right thing to do, and it more accurately reflects the values of Texans. This is long overdue, and we owe it to the people of Texas. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I stand in opposition of HB 4. I have written remarks, but these remarks come straight from my heart. The question I want to ask as we prepare for a final vote on this bill is that, is it worth it? Is it worth it to once again ignore the will of countless Texans saying, no, we don't want this. Let's focus on flood relief. Let's increase access to health care. Let's provide funding for our public schools. There are still bodies being recovered from the flooding, but we are here focusing on maps, not flood relief, not returning the bodies to loved ones, but racist maps, not Texans. During the first call special session, we had 2 weeks to focus on providing flood relief, in which we had no bills on the floor regarding this topic. Not until Democrats broke quorum did a bill magically pop up as the right appealed to its base that Democrats were not doing their job. Even after leaving, my colleagues on the right had the executive power to provide funding for that flood relief at any time, and all it would have taken was a signature by the governor. During the quorum break, I watched my colleagues. I watched you call us liars and instruct your people to go get them. Funny thing is that they found us before the FBI and the state troopers that the speaker claimed was doing everything they could to find us. Some of my colleagues even made it a little easier with their posting. Republicans in this chamber and in the shadows of social media threatened us, shared our home addresses, and even threatened our lives with bomb threats. I watched you all, and let me tell you, my people, black people, fought too hard for this right to vote. And if you know me, you know I do not play political games with y'all in this body, because I know the work we do on this floor speaks life and death into communities across this state. I leave the political games to the ones of you who are setting up your campaigns to run for these new seats. Another power grab on the backs of black representation. People put under surveillance by the FBI. People who had militias formed against them by their elected leadership. Who had to work in a system that changed the rules when they didn't get their way or listen to the will of the people. Doesn't that sound familiar today? I'm not going to make this speech super long because most of the members have already turned their ears off to Texans. I will say this: remember this day, Texas. Remember the meetings you had with members when they could say nothing but "I'm sorry" behind closed doors, but be complicit in allowing a dictator to take over our nation. That's not the United States, and that sure as hell is not Texas. To close, I will ask this, Mr. Speaker, members. I hope you are proud of your policies and how they serve Texans. Is it worth it? You're the ones who have to sleep at night.
Chair recognizes Ms. Hickland. Hickland.
Mr. Speaker, members, I am in favor of this bill. All day, we've heard arguments against this bill, and at the core, those arguments come down to two things: race and a person. At every single public hearing, members of Congress have stood up only to insult President Trump and also to insult those who support him. But here's the reality: 242 of Texas' 254 counties decisively voted to elect him. That fact alone shows the will of Texans. And yet, the other side keeps saying what we're doing here is racist. But notice this: they are the ones who keep bringing race into the conversation over and over again. It's been their argument at all of our hearings and on the floor today. In doing so, they're making an insulting assumption that someone's political beliefs, that someone's vote, can be predicted simply by the color of their skin. But let's be clear. It's simply not accurate to assume that minorities will always vote one way. We don't have to look any farther than the most recent election for proof. In the state of Texas, 55% of Hispanics voted for our current president. 55% of Asian Americans did the same. And now we're seeing a noticeable shift among African American voters towards Republicans. When we look at the details of the maps and these district lines, they reflect political performance of those areas. Irregular shapes are now more compact, lines drawn on natural boundaries, counties made whole, cities restored. It's more than a person, it's policies. We all campaigned and knocked on doors. We all heard concerns regarding the border, the economy, law and order, fostering safe communities, eliminating fraud, waste, and abuse in our government. These are the issues that have been championed by President Trump and the policies overwhelmingly supported by Texans. Texans deserve representation that reflects our values, and that is exactly what this bill seeks to accomplish. In this body, we have seen some hard-fought wins, ensuring that only citizens vote, empowering parents to choose their children's education, protecting children from obscenity, defining a woman. Why was that hard? We are proud Texans. We are proud Americans. Let the people choose their elected officials. They did, and this effort is in response to that. Vote for this bill.
Chair recognizes Mr. Hunter to close.
Members, move passage.
The question occurs on final passage of House Bill 4. This is a record vote. Clerk, ring the bell. There's a Hunter voting aye. King voting aye. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? "88 ayes and 52 nays. House Bill 4 is finally passed. Members, the call on the House has expired. The doorkeeper may unlock the doors. The Speaker's desk is clear. Mr. Guerin moves that the House recess pending the reading and referral of bills and receipt of messages and administrative actions till 10 a.m. Thursday. Is there objection? Chair hears none. The House stands recessed pending the reading and referral of bills, receipt of messages, and administrative actions. The following bills and resolutions on first reading and referral. The clerk will read the bills and resolutions.
HB number 38 by Schofield, relating to the rate at which interest accrues in connection with the deferral of abatement of collection of ad valorem taxes of certain resident homesteads, referred to the Committee on Ways and Means. HB number 41 by Schofield, relating to the establishment of a limitation on the total amount of ad valorem taxes that certain taxing units may impose on the residence homestead of individuals who are disabled or elderly and their surviving spouses, referred to the Committee on Ways and Means. HB number 46 by Tepper, relating to a limit on political subdivision expenditures, referred to the Committee on Intergovernmental Affairs. HB number 47 by Tepper, relating to the authority of a property owner to obtain an injunction restraining the collection of ad valorem taxes by a taxing unit if the taxing unit adopts a tax rate that exceeds the voter approval tax rate and subsequently takes action that constitutes a material deviation from the stated purpose of the tax increase, referred to the Committee on Ways and Means. HB number 49 by Tepper, relating to the restrictions on the use of certain ad valorem tax revenue for the payment of public securities, referred to the Committee on Ways and Means. HB number 62 by Gervin Hawkins, relating to the operability of first responder public safety communication services used in responding to natural disasters or other emergencies on the Capitol grounds, referred to the Committee on Disaster Preparedness Flooding Select. HB number 64 by Kane, relating to a vacancy in the office of a senator or representative due to the excessive absence, referred to the Committee on State Affairs. HB number 77 by Kane, relating to the repeal or limitations on certain state and local taxes, including school district maintenance and operations, ad valorem taxes, the enactment of a state and local value-added taxes, and related school finance reform imposing taxes, for the Committee on Ways and Means. HB number 83 by Slauson, relating to the repeal of additional ad valorem taxes imposed as a result of change or use of certain land, for the Committee on Ways and Means. HB number 84 by Tepper, relating to limitations on increases in the appraised value of certain property for ad valorem tax purposes, for the Committee on Ways and Means. HB number 85 by Gerdes, relating to the vote required in election to approve ad valorem tax rate that exceeds a taxing unit's voter approved tax rate, making conforming changes, referred to the Committee on Ways and Means. HB number 92 by Toth, relating to the repeal or limitations on certain state and local taxes, including school district maintenance and operation ad valorem taxes, the enactment state or local value-added taxes, and related school finance reform imposing taxes, referred to the Committee on Ways and Means. HB number 98 by Kerwin, relating to the repeal or limitation on certain state and local taxes, including school district maintenance and operation ad valorem taxes, of enactment of state and local value-added taxes, and related school finance reform imposing taxes, referred to the Committee on Ways and Means. HB number 99 by Dean, relating to the repeal of or limitations on certain state and local taxes, including school district maintenance and operation ad valorem taxes, the enactment state and local value-added taxes, related school finance reform, and directing the comptroller to identify alternatives to local ad valorem taxes imposing taxes, for the Committee on Ways and Means. HB number 100 by Dean, relating to the use of certain federal funds received by the state to provide property tax refunds to Texas homestead owners, part of the Committee on Ways and Means. HB number 101 by Dean, relating to requiring voter approval to certain local tax rate increases adopted pursuant to a disaster declaration, for the Committee on Ways and Means. HB number 108 by Zwiener, relating to the authority of a county to establish drainage utilities, imposing drainage fees, and regulate land used for purpose of flood management, for the Committee on Disaster Preparedness and Flooding Select. HB number 117 by Zwiener, relating to the authority of a county to regulate impervious cover of an unincorporated area, area of a county for the Committee on Disaster Preparedness and Flooding Select. HB number 119 by Lalani relating to the Emergency Preparedness and Contingency Operations Plan, Inspections and Enforcement for Senior Retirement Communities for the Committee on Disaster Preparedness and Flooding Select. HB number 122 by Landgraf relating to eliminating certain state-required assessment instruments of certain end-of-course assessment instruments not required by federal law for the Committee on Public Education. HB number 125 by Zwiener relating to the regulation of stormwater management by certain counties for the Committee on Disaster Preparedness and Flooding Select. HB number 139 by Isaac relating to the calculation of certain ad valorem tax rates of a taxing unit in the manner in which a proposed ad valorem tax rate that exceeds the voter approval tax rate is approved, making conforming changes for the Committee on Ways and Means. HB number 144 by Money relating to the protection of an unborn child's rights and criminal liability and justification for prohibited conduct for the Committee on State Affairs. HB number 159 by Shaheen relating to the use of interim testing and adaptive growth-based assessment instruments for certain required assessments of public school students and prohibiting the use of results of certain required assessment for the public school students for certain purposes for the Committee on Public Education. HB number 165 by Metcalf relating to the management and removal of vegetation and debris by certain electric utilities referred to the Committee on State Affairs. HB number 174 by Hicklin relating to the prohibition of lobbyist representation for political subdivision and private entities referred to the Committee on State Affairs. HB number 176 by Hicklin relating to the repeal of provisions providing the calculation of unused increment rate and the use of rate in calculating certain ad valorem tax rates for the Committee on Ways and Means. HB number 177 by Hicklin relating to the calculation of certain ad valorem tax rates of a taxing unit in the manner in which a proposed ad valorem tax rate that exceeds the voter approval tax rate is approved, making conforming changes for the Committee on Ways and Means. HB number 178 by Hicklin relating to the efficiency audits for certain political subdivisions for the Committee on Ways and Means. HB number 181 by Gerdes relating to the limit on municipal and county expenditures for the Committee on Intergovernmental Affairs. HB number 182 by Flores relating to the participation by flood-prone counties in National Weather Services for Storm Ready program for the Committee on Disaster Preparedness and Flooding Select. HB number 183 by Bella Montgomery relating to an exemption from ad valorem taxation of the total appraised value of the residence of homesteads of certain elderly individuals and their surviving spouses for the Committee on Ways and Means. HB number 184 by Bella Montgomery relating to limitation on increases in the appraised value of real property for ad valorem tax purposes for the Committee on Ways and Means. HB number 185 by Money relating to the use of political subdivision for public funds for lobbying activities for the Committee on State Affairs. HB number 186 by Olcott relating to the use by political subdivision for public funds for lobbying activities for the Committee on State Affairs. HB number 187 by Olcott relating to the authority of Texas Commission on Environmental Quality to issue an emergency or temporary order request by a county judge following a weather emergency for the Committee on Disaster Preparedness and Flooding Select. HB number 188 by Morales Shaw relating to the creation of Texas Rural Emergency Preparedness Fund for flood-prone communities for the Committee on Disaster Flooding Select. HB number 189 by Morales Shaw relating to requiring certain governmental entities to allow interested persons to comment on the proposed adoption or revision of certain emergency management plans for the Committee on Disaster Preparedness and Flooding Select. HB number 190 by Morales Shaw relating to state and local government disaster preparedness for the Committee on Disaster Preparedness and Flooding Select. HB number 191 by Verdell relating to the preference in state purchasing for certain goods and services used in a disaster area for the Committee on Disaster Preparedness and Flooding Select. HB number 194 by Curry relating to the flood and safety signage in certain areas of flood-prone municipalities and counties for the Committee on Disaster Preparedness and Flooding Select. HB number 195 by Curry relating to designating certain substances in Schedule 4 controlled substances under the Texas Controlled Substances Act for the Committee on State Affairs. HB number 197 by Curry relating to a study on establishing testing and scientific standards of determining tetrahydrocannabinol intoxication for the Committee on Public Health. HB number 200 by Little relating to the maintenance of emergency communication devices in certain facilities serving vulnerable populations for the Committee on Disaster Preparedness and Flooding Select. HB number 201 by LaHood relating to the exemption from ad valorem taxation of part of an appraised value of the residence homestead of a partially disabled veteran or surviving spouse of such a veteran based on the disability rating of a veteran for the Committee on Ways and Means. HB number 202 by LaHood relating to exemption from ad valorem taxation as part of the appraised value of the residence homestead of a partially disabled veteran or the surviving spouse of such a veteran based on the disability of rating that veteran for the Committee on Ways and Means. HB number 203 by LaHood relating to the limit on political subdivision expenditures and the adoption of ad valorem tax rates for the Committee on Ways and Means. HB number 204 by Paul relating to the governance and territory of the Harris County Flood Control District for the Committee on Disaster Preparedness and Flooding Select. HB number 205 by Wilson relating to authorizing certain projects and undertaken in response to the disaster by certain economic development corporations for the Committee on Disaster Preparedness and Flooding Select. HB number 210 by Lozano relating to the definition of a residential homestead for purposes of the exemption from ad valorem taxation of residence homestead of a totally disabled veteran of the surviving spouse of such a veteran, for the Committee on Ways and Means. HB number 211 by money relating to the calculation of voter approval tax rate of certain taxing units in the manner in which a proposed ad valorem tax rate that exceeds the voter approval tax rate is approved by the voters, for the Committee on Ways and Means. HB number 215 by Martinez relating to the establishment of the disaster identification system for a declared state of disaster, for the Committee on Disaster Preparedness and Flooding Select. HB number 216 by Troxclair relating to the provision of an abortion-inducing drug, for the Committee on State Affairs. HB number 217 by Verdell relating to the creation of a flood recovery loan program to provide low-interest loans to persons who are victims of flood-related disasters, for the Committee on Disaster Preparedness and Flooding Select. HB number 218 by Troxclair relating to the prohibition of transporting or funding the transportation of an unemancipated minor for an abortion, providing a civil penalty, creating a criminal offense, for the Committee on State Affairs. HB number 219 by Little relating to the limitation on the increases in the appraised value of a resident's homestead for ad valorem taxation, for the Committee on Ways and Means. HB number 220 by Troxclair relating to the vote required by a governing body of a taxing unit to adopt an ad valorem tax rate that exceeds the voter approval tax rate or authorize the issuance of a tax bonds, for the Committee on Ways and Means. HB number 222 by Troxclair relating to reducing school district maintenance and the operations of ad valorem taxes through the use of certain surplus state revenue, for the Committee on Ways and Means. HB number 223 by Troxclair relating to municipal and county financial requirements, for the Committee on Intergovernmental Affairs. HB number 224 by Metcalf relating to youth camp emergency preparedness plans, for the Committee on Disaster Preparedness and Flooding Select. HB number 226 by Richardson relating to the required provision of campers of youth camps of active radio frequency identification tags, for the Committee on Public Health. HB number 228 by Dyson relating to expenditures for lobbying activities made by certain entities, for the Committee on State Affairs. HB number 229 by Patterson relating to the use by a political subdivision of public funds for lobbying of certain other activities, for the Committee on State Affairs. HB number 231 by Gerdes relating to an exemption from the requirement to obtain a permit from the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality for certain dams or reservoirs operated and maintained for the purposes of erosion, floodwater, and sediment control, for the Committee on Disaster Preparedness and Flooding Select. HB number 232 by Verdell relating to the establishment of a disaster recovery fund, for the Committee on Disaster Preparedness and Flooding Select. HB number 234 by Cunningham relating to the suspension of toll collection while an evacuation order is in effect, for the Committee on Disaster Preparedness and Flooding Select. HB number 236 by Hayes relating to the affirmative defense and prosecution for certain victims of trafficking or persons or compelling prostitution, for the Committee on Criminal Jurisprudence. HB number 239 by Guillen relating to appraisal for ad valorem tax purposes of land subject to a quarantine established by the Texas Animal Health Commission of ticks or screwworms, for the Committee on Ways and Means. HB number 240 by Guillen relating to the definitions of certain terms for purposes of the exemption for ad valorem taxation of farm products in the hands of the producer, for the Committee on Ways and Means. HB number 242 by Munoz relating to the collection of delinquent ad valorem taxes, for the Committee on Ways and Means. HB number 243 by Munoz relating to the creation and operation of the Texas Interoperability Council and a grant program administered by the Council, for the Committee on Disaster Preparedness and Flooding Select. HB number 244 by Martinez relating to flood control measures for the Texas Department of Transportation Highway projects, for the Committee on Disaster Preparedness and Flooding Select. HB number 245 by Munoz relating to the collection of a delinquent ad valorem taxes, for the Committee on Ways and Means. HB number 246 by Munoz relating to the abolition of ad valorem taxes and creation of a joint interim committee on the abolition of those taxes, for the Committee on Ways and Means. HB number 247 by Munoz relating to the implementation of an instructionally supportive assessment program and the adoption, administration, and assessment of instruments in public schools, for the Committee on Public Education. HB number 248 by Munoz relating to the jurisdiction of statutory county courts and creation of an additional statutory probate court in Hidalgo County, for the Committee on Judiciary and Civil Jurisprudence. HB number 249 by Cook relating to limitation on increases in the appraised value of real property for ad valorem tax purposes, for the Committee on Ways and Means. HB number 250 by Cook relating to an exemption from ad valorem taxation of a percentage of the assessed value of property owned by certain disabled veterans, the amount of the exemption of the surviving spouses and children of the certain disabled veterans, for the Committee on Ways and Means. HB number 251 by Cook relating to the termination of the value not in dispute of the property that is subject for an ad valorem tax protest or appeal, for the Committee on Ways and Means. HB number 254 by Ashby relating to eligibility of political subdivision for a grant for the Rural Infrastructure Disaster Recovery Program, for the Committee on Disaster Preparedness and Flooding Select. HJR number 1 by Shaheen proposing a constitutional amendment specifying the authority of the Attorney General to prosecute a criminal offense prescribed by the election laws of the state, for the Committee on State Affairs. HJR number 6 by Schofield proposing a constitutional amendment establishing a limitation on the total amount of ad valorem taxes that certain political subdivisions may impose on the residents' homesteads of persons who are disabled, elderly, or their surviving spouses, for the Committee on Ways and Means. HJR number 9 by Tepper proposing a constitutional amendment to authorize the legislature to set lower limits on the maximum appraised value of residents' homestead and real property other than a resident's homestead for ad valorem tax purposes, and to make the limit on the maximum appraised value of real property other than the resident's homestead, for the Committee on Ways and Means. HJR number 13 by Leo Wilson proposing a constitutional amendment specifying the authority of the Attorney General to prosecute a criminal offense prescribed by the election laws of the state, for the Committee on State Affairs. HJR number 15 by Bella Montgomery proposing a constitutional amendment to exempt from ad valorem taxation the total market value of the resident's homestead of certain elderly persons and their surviving spouses, spouses, referred to the Committee on Ways and Means. HAR number 16 by Bella Montgomery, proposing a constitutional amendment to exempt from ad valorem taxation the total market value of the residence homestead of certain elderly persons and their surviving spouses, referred to the Committee on Ways and Means. HAR number 17 by Money, proposing a constitutional amendment to abolish ad valorem taxes, referred to the Committee on Ways and Means. HAR number 18 by Bella Montgomery, proposing a constitutional amendment to authorize the legislature to limit the maximum appraised value of certain real property for ad valorem tax purposes, referred to the Committee on Ways and Means. HAR number 19 by LaHood, proposing a constitutional amendment authorizing the legislature to provide an exemption from ad valorem taxation of part of the market value of the residence homestead of partially disabled veteran or surviving spouse of such a veteran based on the disability of the rating of the veteran, referred to the Committee on Ways and Means. HAR number 20 by Little, proposing a constitutional amendment to authorize the legislature to set a lower limit on the maximum appraised value of residence homestead of ad valorem taxation, referred to the Committee on Ways and Means. HAR number 23 by Munoz, proposing a constitutional amendment to abolish ad valorem taxes, referred to the Committee on Ways and Means. HAR number 24 by Cook, proposing a constitutional amendment to authorize the legislature to limit the maximum appraised value for real property of ad valorem tax purposes, referred to the Committee on Ways and Means. HAR number 25 by Cook, proposing constitutional amendment to authorize the legislature to exempt from ad valorem taxation a percentage of the assessed value of the property owned by certain disabled veterans, referred to the Committee on Ways and Means. HB number 7 by Leach, relating to prohibitions on the manufacturing and provision of 2 abortion-inducing drugs, including the jurisdiction of and 3 effects of certain judgments by certain courts within and outside 4 this state with respect to manufacturing and provision of those 5 drugs, and to protections from certain counteractions under laws 6 other than laws of the state, authorizing custom actions, referred to the Committee on State Affairs.
Pursuant to a motion previously adopted, the House stands recess until 10 a.m. Thursday.